The woman with no name. The sun on planet Varel burned orange. Its heat made the air heavy, thick with dust. David Carter wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped out of the small transport vehicle. He was here for a simple job: fixing broken solar panels in an alien refugee zone. He had seen many strange things in his years working across colonies, but he had never seen this. A crowd had gathered near the market gate. Murmurs filled the air. David slowed his steps, drawn to the sound. That's when he saw her. She was kneeling in the dirt. A tall alien woman with ash-gray skin and long silver hair that hung like broken threads. Her clothes were torn and dusty. Her hands trembled as she reached up toward someone. That someone was him. You, she whispered, her voice dry and cracked like old paper. Please, marry me. David froze. People around them gasped. Some pointed. A few even laughed cruelly. A child tugged at their mother's sleeve, asking, "Why is she crying like that?" David blinked, unsure if he had heard right. What? He said softly. The woman lowered her head. Her shoulders shook, but no sound came. It was the silent kind of crying, the kind that came from deep inside, pain that had no more voice left. An old alien man standing nearby muttered, "Another one left behind." Pitiful. David looked at her again. She wasn't just begging. She was desperate, broken, like she had nothing left to lose. He stepped closer. "Are you okay?" She looked up. Her eyes, they weren't human. They glowed faintly purple. But inside them was something deeply human: fear, shame, and hope. "My name doesn't matter," she said quietly. "They've removed it. I am not allowed to speak it anymore." "What do you mean?" he asked. She tried to speak but coughed instead. Her lips were dry, her body thin, too thin. She hadn't eaten properly in days, maybe more. David took off his small water bottle and offered it. She hesitated, then grabbed it with both hands and drank like she hadn't tasted water in a week. He looked around. No one helped her. No one offered her food or shade. The other aliens simply passed by like she wasn't even there. "Why are you out here?" he asked gently. She wiped her mouth and answered, "Because I was abandoned. My union failed. No mate, no child, no worth." David didn't understand. "So they just leave you on the street?" She nodded. 3 days. If I do not find a bond, I am removed. They call it cleansing." "Removed how?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her silence said enough. David felt a knot in his chest. He looked around again. No one objected. No one cared. It was like this was normal. "You're asking me to marry you?" he asked slowly. She nodded once, afraid even to hope. "But you don't even know me." "I do not need to know you," she said. "I only need you to say yes. It will mark me as protected. I will live." It was too much, too fast. He had just arrived, and now this alien woman was asking him to save her life with a word. David backed up a step. I'm sorry. I need to think." She said nothing. Just lowered her head again, silent tears falling into the dirt. David walked away, but he didn't get far. Even as he worked on the solar panels that afternoon, her face stayed in his mind. The way she had fallen, the pain in her voice, the hunger in her eyes. She wasn't just begging for marriage. She was begging for life, and no one else had even looked at her like she mattered. When night came, he returned to the market. She was still there, curled up against the wall, shivering in the cold. He placed a ration pack beside her. She flinched at first, but then slowly opened her eyes. "I brought food," he said. She stared at it like it was a miracle. Then at him. "I'm not saying yes yet," David said, "but I'm not walking away either." She nodded. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened, just a little. "My name," she said slowly. was Riala. Before they took it, David sat down beside her. Well, Riala, he said, let's start with food, and maybe tomorrow we talk more. In the quiet of the alien night, an unlikely bond had begun. Not with love, not with trust, but with something even more rare, kindness. And, for a woman who had nothing left, that was enough to hope again. The law of her people. David couldn't sleep. Even though his small shelter was warm and quiet, his mind kept returning to the woman outside. Riala, the way she had spoken, the pain behind her words, and the strange law that had brought her to her knees, it all echoed in his head. The next morning he left early. He packed extra food, a blanket, and more water. When he reached the marketplace, he found her still sitting where he had left her. Her eyes opened when she heard his footsteps. She didn't speak. David crouched down and handed her a warm food packet. You need strength, he said. Riala nodded, silently. She unwrapped the food carefully, almost reverently, as if afraid it would vanish. She took small bites, her hands still shaking. You shouldn't be out here, he said. It's dangerous. I have nowhere else to go, she replied. I'm not allowed inside the colony shelters, not without a bond. David frowned. You said something about a law. What is it exactly? She looked up at him. Her eyes were tired but honest. My people follow the old rule. If a female is abandoned by her mate and she cannot produce life, she is considered broken. That's cruel, David said. She nodded once. We are given 3 days. If no one claims us, we are cast out, sent into the wastes. It is where the forgotten go to die. David couldn't believe what he was hearing. That's insane. Why would they do that? To keep the bloodlines pure, to remove weakness from the gene pool. They say it is for the strength of the species. Her voice was bitter. David ran a hand through his hair. So if I say, I'll marry you, that ends it? It marks me as bonded. It is enough. Even if no child comes. If a human accepts me, I gain protection. They cannot send me away. But we don't even know each other. Riala lowered her eyes. I do not ask for love. I ask for mercy. For life. You are not like the others. I saw it in your eyes yesterday. You stopped. David felt something twist in his chest. How many women are treated like this? Hundreds, she whispered. Some give up. Some lie with strangers for hope. Some walk into the wastes on their own. She looked down at her hands. I was going to walk. Yesterday. Then you came. David swallowed hard. Why me? You didn't laugh. You didn't look away. There was silence for a long moment. Then she said, I was once bonded to a male who beat me when I failed to give him a child. He sold me for food. And now I am this. David sat beside her. You're not this. You're someone. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. He handed her the blanket. She pulled it around her shoulders slowly like it was made of silk. I don't know what I'm doing, he said honestly. I'm just a mechanic. Riala looked at him. To me, you are hope. David looked away, his heart heavy. Then he stood. Come, with me, she flinched. Where? My shelter. It's not much, but it's better than the dirt. You would let me stay? She asked, almost in disbelief. Yes, but just to talk. To eat. I still need time. She nodded. That is more than anyone has given me. As they walked through the refugee zone together, people stared. Some muttered things in low voices, but David kept walking and Riala followed. Inside the small metal hut, she sat on the floor quietly, her blanket still wrapped tight. David made tea and handed her a steaming cup. She sipped it slowly. I'll ask again, he said. What happens if no one claims you by tomorrow? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, 2 guards will come. They will put a mark on my hand. That means I have no place in this world anymore. And after that, they take me away. No one ever returns. David stared at the wall. He had 24 hours to decide. Walk away, or stand between this woman and her death. But something inside him had already changed. Riala looked at him from across the room, unsure, fragile, and David realized this wasn't about marriage. This was about saving a soul no one else cared about. The past as she hid Riala had never been inside a place that felt safe. The small shelter David called home was made of thin metal and simple machines, but to her, it felt like a palace. Warm, quiet, no shouting voices, no cold hands dragging her away. She sat in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees, watching David fix a small device at his workbench. Sparks flew as he tightened something. She flinched slightly, unused to sudden noises. David noticed. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Yes, it's just, I'm not used to peace." He put down his tools and pulled over a chair. "You don't have to talk, but I'd like to know what happened. Who hurt you?" Riala didn't answer right away. Her fingers played with the edge of the blanket he had given her. Then in a soft voice she said, "My family sold me when I was 16. David blinked. "Sold you?" She nodded. "To a powerful male. He wanted a breeder, someone to give him many children. I was healthy, young, and quiet. Perfect for him." She looked away. "I gave him nothing. After 2 cycles, I was declared empty. He said I was broken inside. He grew angry. One night, he hit me. Then again. Then again. My face. My ribs. My mind." David clenched his fists. Why didn't someone stop him? Because he had status. And I was nothing. He said I shamed him, so he sold me again. This time to a mining outpost. I worked like a slave. Cleaning, cooking, they laughed at me, called me names, threw food on the ground and made me eat it. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I escaped in the middle of a sandstorm. I thought I'd die. But I found a refugee ship. They took me here, and now I'm marked. David felt a tightness in his chest. Marked for what? Survival? She looked at him. Marked for disposal. He stood and began pacing. Your people, your laws. It's all wrong. It's sick. She didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. After a long silence, she whispered, "That's why I begged you. Not because I wanted a husband, I just didn't want to die nameless." David sat down again. "You have a name." "Not anymore." "Then I'll give you one," he said firmly. "Riala. That's what you told me. That's who you are. Not a number, not a slave, not trash." She stared at him, eyes wide. "No one's ever said that to me," she said. He nodded. "Then they were wrong." The room grew quiet again. Only the hum of the small heater filled the air. "I'm not a hero," David added. "I fix things. That's all I've ever done. Machines, engines. But maybe this time, maybe I can fix more than metal." A single tear slid down Riala's cheek. David didn't reach for her. He didn't touch her. He just let her cry. Because sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is let someone else fall apart and stay beside them. Later that night, she spoke again. "There is something else." David looked up. "What?" "I lied," she said. "I do want a mate. Someday. Not now. Not through fear. But real." She looked at him, serious now. "I want someone to choose me, because they see me, not because they pity me." David nodded slowly. "And maybe," he said with a soft smile, "one day I will." The offer. No one expected. The morning sun rose over the refugee colony, casting long shadows across the dusty camp. People moved quickly, keeping their heads down. No one looked toward the eastern wall. That's where the marked ones stayed, and that's where Riala now stood, with a fresh red symbol burned into her wrist. David had left only for an hour, to fetch repair tools. But when he returned, His heart dropped. He saw her from a distance, surrounded by two tall alien guards in armor. One held a scanner, the other a long stun rod. "Step back," one of them shouted when she tried to move. "You've been claimed by no one. The law is clear." David ran toward them. "Wait," he shouted. "What are you doing?" The guards turned. One narrowed his eyes. "Human, this doesn't concern you." "She's under my care," David said. "I gave her shelter, food." "She's not bonded," the guard snapped, "and today is the final day." Riala stood, frozen. She didn't cry this time. Her eyes were empty, like she had already accepted the end. David felt something rise inside him. Anger, and something deeper. Protectiveness. He stepped between Riala and the guards. "I'll marry her," he said. Silence fell over the entire camp. Even the wind seemed to pause. People stopped what they were doing. Eyes turned toward them, mouths opened, whispers spread like fire. "You will what?" one of the guards asked, disbelief in his voice. "I said," David repeated, "I will marry her." The second guard sneered. "Do you even understand the weight of those words?" David didn't flinch. "I understand this much. If you take her, you take me too." The guards hesitated. This wasn't normal. A human had never interfered this way. "She's from a dishonored line," one muttered. "Even among her own, she's rejected." David turned and looked at Riala. "I don't care about bloodlines." She stared at him, lips trembling. "You don't have to do this." "I know," he replied, "but I want to." More people gathered now. Refugees, traders, officials. The camp's quiet corner had become the center of attention. A tall alien elder stepped forward from the crowd. His cloak was dark, his face stern. "I am the bond overseer," he said. "If this is real, it must be declared under witness. If you are lying, the punishment is exile." "I'm not lying," David said firmly. The elder stepped closer. "You must take part in the ritual of fire." "What's that?" The elder pointed to the stone path behind him. "Bare feet, 7 steps, through the sacred coals. It is our way of proving a union's truth." David looked down. The path shimmered with red heat. Even from where he stood, he could feel the burn. He glanced at Riala. She was shaking her head, eyes wide. "No, don't. They're testing you. They want you to fail so they can take me anyway." David smiled softly. "Then I guess I better not fail." He took off his boots. Gasps echoed through the crowd. He stepped onto the first stone. It burned. Pain shot up his leg, but he gritted his teeth. Second step, third, each one worse than the last. Riala covered her mouth, tears pouring from her eyes. By the 5th step, David's legs were trembling. He nearly fell, but he didn't. He pushed forward. The 6th step made him cry out. But he kept going, and when he reached the 7th stone, he stood tall. The elder stepped forward and raised a hand. "The bond is accepted." The guards lowered their weapons. Riala ran forward and grabbed David, steadying him as he stumbled. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. "I know," he said, smiling despite the pain. "But now they can't take you away." The crowd slowly began to disperse. Some still stared. Others whispered, but none dared challenge what they had seen. Inside the shelter that night, David's feet were wrapped in cloth. Riala sat beside him, gently applying healing salve. "Why?" she asked again. He looked at her. "Because no one else would." The ritual of fire. David's feet were blistered. The healing salve Riala applied helped, but every step still burned. Yet he didn't complain. Not once. In fact, he smiled. "You really walked through fire for me," Riala whispered, staring at his wrapped feet. David leaned back on the metal bench in his shelter. "Yeah, and I'd do it again." Riala looked down. "You shouldn't have done that. They were testing your pain, not your love." David's smile faded. "I know. But If I didn't pass, they would have taken you, right? She nodded slowly. Outside, the air buzzed with strange tension. Some in the colony were whispering about the human who bonded with a dishonored female. Others were angry. The law had never been broken this way before. David had changed something, and now the elders wanted to see if he was truly worthy. That evening, a messenger came. A young alien girl with silver eyes and no emotion in her voice. "You have been summoned," she said. "Summoned?" David asked. "By the Council of Tradition. You must face the trial of endurance to prove your bond. Is not a trick." Riala stepped forward. "No, he already passed the fire path. That was enough." The girl didn't blink. "He broke the rules. He made a public vow for an unclean. Now they demand more." "What happens if I fail?" David asked. "You will be marked a liar," she replied, "and she will be taken." Riala clutched David's arm. "Don't go." David looked at her. "I have to." The next day he stood in front of the alien elders, 5 of them cloaked in bone-white robes. They sat in a circle around a large arena made of black sand. Strange symbols glowed on the ground. Fires burned on each side. David stepped inside. He limped slightly but stood tall. "What is this place?" he asked. One of the elders spoke. "This is where warriors prove strength, but today you will prove heart." A large gate opened. Out stepped a massive horned creature. Not wild, but not friendly either. It was chained, but its eyes were wild. Muscles thick. Breath heavy. David stared. "You want me to fight that?" "No," said the elder. "You must not strike it. You must stand still while it charges. If your heart remains calm, it will stop. If you fear, it will crush you." David's throat went dry. "That's insane." "No," the elder replied. "That is faith." Riala stood in the shadows watching, her nails dug into her palms. She couldn't breathe, couldn't cry. Only hope. The creature snorted, then lowered its head. David closed his eyes. He thought about the first time he saw Riala on the ground, begging, alone. He thought about her trembling hands, her silent tears, and her voice saying, "Please." "I don't want to die nameless." He opened his eyes. The creature charged, dust flew. The ground shook. But David didn't move. Closer. Louder. Closer. Then, just inches from his chest, it stopped. Its breath hit his face like hot steam. Its eyes locked with his. For a long second there was silence. Then the beast backed away. The crowd gasped. The elders stood. "The human has passed," one of them said. "His bond is real. And now, so is hers." Riala ran to him. She didn't care what others thought. Didn't care if her kind judged her. She threw her arms around him. "You were crazy," she whispered. "But you saved me again." David laughed softly. "Guess we're stuck with each other now." That night in the quiet shelter, David laid back with his feet still sore, his body tired, but his heart full. Riala sat beside him, brushing dust from his hair. "You're not like anyone I've ever known," she said. "And you're not like anyone I expected," he replied. They sat in silence, listening to the wind. 2 broken people, now whole together. The truth behind the law. The next morning, a shadow fell over the colony. Not from a ship, not from a storm, but from fear. Word had spread. A human had passed the trial. A dishonored alien woman was now bonded. The fire test had not stopped him. The beast had not broken him, and that scared the elders more than they expected. Inside the shelter, Riala sat by the heater, watching David sleep. His face was peaceful, even though his body was bruised. She had never seen anyone protect her before, never thought someone would face death just to keep her safe. When he opened his eyes, she smiled softly. "You should rest more." David stretched and sat up. "I've rested enough. I want answers now." Riala blinked. "Answers? I want to know why they treated you like trash." why you were marked, and why everyone looked afraid when I said I'd marry you. Riala looked away. Because I'm broken. No, David said firmly. There's more to it. I saw it in the elders' faces. They weren't just angry, they were afraid. Just then, there was a soft knock at the shelter door. David opened. Carefully, an old alien woman stood there, hunched and cloaked in rough fabric. Her eyes were sharp, glowing faint green. I heard the stories, she whispered. You are the one who stood in fire and faced the beast. David nodded. Who are you? I'm no one, she said, but I used to be a record keeper, before they erased my title. She looked past him and spotted Riala. Her voice turned soft. You are her daughter, aren't you? Riala stepped forward slowly. Do you know me? The old woman smiled sadly. I knew your mother. She was a fighter, a loud voice among silent women. She once tried to change the law. Riala froze. My mother was executed when I was 5. The woman nodded. Yes, because she spoke out. She believed females should not be discarded. She believed bloodlines meant nothing without love. She was silenced. David stepped in. And now Riala's being punished for that? The old woman nodded. Her family line was labeled dishonored. Her fate was sealed the day her mother died. Riala looked shaken. They never told me. They just said I failed to give life. No, the woman said. You were never meant to succeed. They wanted you to disappear. Quietly. David's jaw clenched. So all of this, her suffering, the trial, the threat of death wasn't about tradition. It was revenge. Yes, the woman whispered. And now that you've broken their rules, they fear what comes next. David stared at the wall. They hadn't just tried to get rid of Riala. They had tried to erase a voice. And now by marrying her, he had become that voice. Later that evening, a message came. A warning. A small device was dropped at their door. David picked it up. It flashed a message in red, leave, or be erased with her. David handed it to Riala. They want me gone, he said. They want us both to disappear. Riala's hands trembled. They will try again. David looked her in the eyes. Then we don't hide. We speak. She shook her head. No one listens to the broken. David smiled coldly. They will, now. That night, David opened a comlink. He sent a message not just to the colony but to Earth's nearby outpost. He recorded everything, the laws, the mark, the forced trials, the truth about Riala's family. He ended the message with one line. If protecting her makes me a traitor, then let the whole galaxy know what your tradition really looks like. Wife by heart, not by law. The video spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, David's message was viewed across colonies, human outposts, neutral stations, even distant alien systems. His voice, calm, strong, honest, cut through politics, and silence like a blade. This is what they do to the forgotten, he had said. This is what they do to women like Riala, just because they don't produce life. Tell me, is this honor, or cruelty wearing tradition's mask? Back on Varel, the elders met in secret. Their faces were pale, their words cold. This human must be silenced, one hissed. He exposed our law, another growled. Now they question our leadership. Riala was nothing. Why did the stars give her such a voice? They ordered David and Riala to be detained immediately, but they were too late. When the guards reached David's shelter, it was already empty. The couple had moved to the western cliffs, hiding among rocky hills with a clear view of the sky. David knew it was only a matter of time before more trouble came, but they weren't hiding out of fear anymore. They were waiting for help. 2 nights later, it arrived. A sleek Earth Alliance ship landed silently near the cliff. Out stepped 2 officers and a medical droid. They greeted David with a handshake and saluted Riala with respect. You made the galaxy listen, the officer said. We're here to offer protection. Riala blinked. For me? For both of you, the man said, and for every woman still marked like you. When the humans arrived in the main colony, they didn't bring weapons. They brought cameras. They brought translators. They brought justice. The elders were called to explain their laws, not in shadows, but in front of everyone. When asked about the branding, they said it was tradition. When asked about the trials, they said it was culture. When asked why women were discarded, they fell silent. That silence was louder than any scream. One by one, refugees stepped forward. Other marked women, abandoned girls, even workers who had watched for years but stayed quiet, and one voice always led them. Riala's. Weeks later, the colony changed. The red branding was banned. Forced removals were stopped. A council was formed, equal, mixed with male and female voices, human and alien both. David and Riala were offered a chance to leave, to return to Earth, to live a quiet life, but they chose to stay, not as rebels, but as builders. One warm evening under a sky full of twin moons, David stood in front of a small crowd. His feet were healed now, but his soul still carried every step he took for her. Riala stood beside him, her hands no longer trembling. An elder from the new council spoke. Do you, David of Earth, take this woman not by law, but by heart? David looked at Riala and smiled. I already did. And you, Riala, daughter of the voice they tried to erase, do you take this man, not as shield or savior, but as your partner? Riala's voice was strong. He gave me back my name. I give him all of me. The crowd cheered. There were no chains, no trials, no fire, only laughter and soft tears. That night, they sat outside their new home. The stars blinked above them. You ever think we'd end up here? David asked. Riala shook her head. I never even thought I'd survive. He pulled her close. You didn't just survive, Riala. You changed everything. She rested her head on his shoulder. I was nobody, she whispered. No, he said softly. You were always somebody. They just didn't want to see it. But I did.